to Exceptional Effort, Mind and Body. Today we're talking about lowering your stress at home, separating work and home life, which is very relevant today. But many people have been working in this type of environment for a number of years now. So it's important, especially from a health perspective, to get a good grasp on how to work effectively at home so that you maintain your work life very well, but also to look after your health, as there can be many stresses which result of working at home. How have you, Heather, I understand you've been working from home for a number of years and experienced that. Do you want to chime in there?
That's right. Yeah, I've been working from home for about 2 years now, which was a big switch for me. I've been in a hospital setting and in a medical clinic setting and normal 9 to 5 like a lot of people, and then suddenly working by myself for myself at home. So yeah, over 2 years, I have experienced, I think, a spectrum of the good and the bad about that. Certainly, one thing that I've noticed is that if I am working by myself and I don't have any set hours, my hours become 24/7, like nonstop. My day just goes, I never feel like I'm done work. And that's been a big challenge that I've had to dial back.
Yeah.
I
And
recognize
Annemie,
that definitely.
Annemie, you were saying the same. We were talking that in the pre-show that finding that balance between your children and your partner as well can be a challenge when working at home.
Absolutely, because in the beginning I didn't find my space to work. You know, you have this house, and then you have these teenagers, in my case, running around, and then a hubby who already, who always wanted something, and they didn't realize that I was trying to create something. You know, and they just tried to ask me something to try to get my attention when they didn't realize that I needed to have my focus. So I decided after a while that I needed to create my own space, a separate room, and I really claimed a room in the house just for me, and the door is closed, you know. And now with this COVID, one of my teenagers who is still living at home, he's homeschooled, let's say, because the teachers, they give online classes. And now he came to me and he said, "Mommy, sorry, finally understand why you need to be focused and you have to have your own room now." Because when I asked him something and he said, "Shh, I'm in the class," you know. So he doesn't want to be interrupted. So all of a sudden he realizes that you really need to have that focus and not to be interrupted when you try to finish something, you know. And I like that he realized how important this is at his age already. He's only 16, but I really like that this COVID experience led to also positive things. That's how to work from home or how to study from home in this case.
That's very important. I've had that similar experience. I've worked from home on and off for a long time, and before I got married, working from home was easy because I had my own space and I could do what I wanted. But then when I found I got married and I had an instant family because my wife at the time, she had 2 daughters as well. And I found that when I started working from home in that environment, I ended up starting to get this list of things to do at home, like, can you fix this, or can you do that, or can you do this? And that similar experience that you were talking about, Annemie, of finding that balance of, hang on a minute, I'm here, I've got work to do that I need to do, and I need to be focused on that, can be a bit of a challenge. So it's important, and that can create a whole level of stress within yourself as well, because you want to look after your family and take care of them, and how do you manage that communication so that you don't create disharmony at home and still manage to get your work done, which I found was a bit of a challenge from my end to actually manage that circumstance. Initially, I didn't do it very well, so I actually went back. I found an office and I went and worked in the office because it was a little bit easier to manage from that perspective, from that health benefit.
No, it wasn't.
Having control over your workflow state, to me, it relates to other things as well. I'm the same way when it comes to working out. So I don't exercise at home. I won't follow a whole, yoga practice at home. But if I physically go to the gym or I'm at the yoga studio, then I will focus and get it done because I feel accountability. I feel a sense of obligation since I put myself in the building, and it's what you're there for, right? So the environment that you've shown up at is all for and dedicated to the work that you're about to do. Whereas at home, it's your kitchen, it's where you sleep, it's where you entertain, it's for a lot of other stuff. So I think it's confusing. And this is why going to an office, even if it's a separate room in your house, kind of helps you solidify that flow state that is dedicated for one thing and not for everything else.
Absolutely, absolutely. I noticed that as well. The day I decided this room is mine, I claim it, things became much easier. Absolutely. And I only enter this room at 9 a.m. in the morning. That's the time I start. Before I will do other things, I will meditate, I will eat, I will do other things. But at 9, my day starts as if I'm going to the office. It's the same stuff.
What about too, from my perspective, I've also found that working from home, especially if it's your own business or that situation, but even if it's not, it's just how do you manage your time as well? Because sometimes working at home, you can find so many different distractions to take you away from what you do, which then can create even more stress because at the last minute you've got all these things to report back in on, and then that creates a whole different level of challenges as well. Have you had much experience with that?
Yeah, for me, distractions fall into 3 categories. One would be my son asking me something or wanting to drive somewhere. The major one is social media. For me, because I work on a computer, I'm online constantly anyway for writing. But as you know, a lot of other communication is online, and I have to turn it off if I really need to get work done. I can't have news and social media notifications interrupting. And then the third distraction for me is cleaning. If I'm working from home, I am constantly wanting to jump up and clean and tidy. So either paying someone to come in and do cleaning so that my time is allotted for work that pays a lot more than cleaning. That can be a way to make sense of that. Or I just dedicate hours at the end of the day and really make an effort to separate that and not be constantly doing 2 different things at once.
I certainly relate to that from that perspective. Same token, children can be a distraction, and I have a good relationship now with my son where I can, because we work especially in this time, he's been at home with me and working. He has a desk next to me, and he will do his online study. And while he's on class, it's quite funny, as you were mentioning, Annemie, he's the same. He's like, shh, don't bother me. I'm doing study now, and he'll block the camera and will mute the camera and give me this look and say, leave me alone, I'm studying. And then but same token too, I've found that when he does need attention and I'm working, sometimes I'll say, hey, look, I need to do this now, give me half an hour and then we can have a chat. But then I also make sure that he gets that time, so that creates that balance in our relationship, and he feels that he's connected with and doesn't start disruptive behaviors to get attention. And you mentioned social media and as well, Heather. I found, from my perspective, for a long time, my phone lives on silent. I won't know that it's ringing or getting a message or any social media unless I actually look at it. It's been like that for a long time, because I found from a time management perspective, if you're reactive, it's very unproductive. And this I think we're talking in the pre-show, even in an office environment, we have these open office spaces. It becomes less productive because you're constantly being interrupted.
Yeah. And you find yourself looking around, you know, people check their phones instinctively, almost like on a timer every 20 minutes. Look and see if there's something new. We get in the habit of that. And if you're in a busy environment with lots of other people around, I think part of your attention is always unconsciously dedicated to surveying the scene around you, which is natural, but not conducive to getting a lot of work done.
That is a training I've found from my end that I needed to learn, was to stop doing that. And you do, because you're in such a habit of checking your messages regularly, even if you have the alerts turned off initially. I found exactly that. I was looking to see, had I got an email, had I got a text message, and actually putting that away so you don't check that made a huge difference in lowering my stress level and getting my work done, because it became a focus. My work became a focus rather than being distracted all the time. So.
Yeah.
But I do relate.
Sorry.
Go ahead, Annemie.
I thought you were finished with the distractions.
Oh no, and the other point I was relating to was the cleaning side of things. I'm a little bit anally retentive in having things neat and tidy, and I can go to a certain level with having things, not put away and things like that. But then there's a certain point where I just must stop, put everything away, and then I can continue on with my work. Otherwise, I find that distracting. So it's
it's a real problem to try to work in a mess. I can't do it either.
Clean desk every day.
I think
the most distracting thing for me from working at home are the neighbors. I think they always want to mow the lawn when you want to work on something very complicated. And I live in a green area. There's always someone who wants to mow the lawn. They're all working from home now with the COVID, and with the good weather, everyone wants to work in the garden, and they all have small children at home at this moment, and they all play outside. So there's always one crying or asking for attention. That's the most distractive thing at this moment, I would say, which is the neighbors. But that's the least of the problems, I would say.
It's an interesting way how you can train yourself, and something I've been learning to do over the past year is with my son, and he has friends over, and they'll be playing and doing things, so making a lot of noise. And even when I've had something, I've actually progressively got quite good at doing this, is being able to ignore their sounds and just focus on what I need to focus on. Whereas before I wouldn't have been able to do that. I would have been constantly distracted, but I've become good at blocking it out. Hopefully not too good that when there's an emergency I can still pay attention to it.
Yeah. I put some music on. I have this concentration music. When you Google on YouTube, you have this kind of concentration music. So this is what is playing in my room, and then I don't hear the noise of the kids playing and other annoying noises to me outside. They're a little bit filtered, let's say. So this is my way to cope with the disturbances.
I've experimented with different kinds of music to listen to in the background while I'm writing. And it's the funniest thing, even really mellow, quiet, relaxing music, various kinds of like folk music that you think maybe would be easy to have in the background. I can't do it. It distracts me. I have discovered the only kind of music I can have playing in the background and work with is bossa nova jazz.
Wow.
I have a very tropical kind of like, Cuban Latin rhythms and stuff going on, and I can have that quietly in the background. But any other music that I like, all kinds of genres, I can't work over. Because I think about the lyrics, or I'm paying attention to the details of the music, and I can't.
For me, binaural beats. The binaural beats, I can work only with this kind of strange music. I would not be able to listen to it in a normal setting. But when I work, I love this kind of bizarre sounds.
Yeah, I found those on YouTube. Sometimes I find them annoying because they're so repetitive, and my unconscious starts to pick up on that, and then I'm distracted by it because I notice that it's repetitive. But Yeah, whatever works for you, and then you get in the
Exactly.
flow.
The brain sometimes does these strange things to you, and then whatever works, I think.
Yeah.
I find that.
Speaking,
Go ahead, Heather.
I was going to say, speaking of distraction, I made a post long before this whole coronavirus pandemic and working from home. I made a post back in January or February about getting really distracted with your work at home, and like, what do you do if you're distracted and you know that you're not being productive and you're just kind of dragging out a job and you're not getting anywhere with it. And my recommendation was to, when you slack off, to just go all the way. Fully slack off. If you're gonna do it, do it. Put everything down. Go enjoy yourself. If you can't stop thinking about the cleaning and it's dragging your work out and you're not getting anything done, put it down and go clean the whole house. Like, so that you're fully in or out, and 100% enjoying your slack off time or not. But it's like one or the other. And a lot of us, I think, spend time in limbo, where we're fighting with ourselves and a lot of different things that we wish we could be doing. And sometimes it's better just to pack it up, close up shop, and go do the thing that is calling to you, and then come back to the work when you're really ready and you've got it out of your system. And that's something I've done multiple times. I have the luxury of working whenever I want. So if I'm going to be writing at 2 a.m. because I spent the day at the beach, so be it. I do that.
That's an interesting point about that balance, Heather, and I agree completely. Sometimes you actually get in, because you've been sitting there for so long, you start to get drained and not as focused. And I've found, like, at the moment, because we're heading into the cooler months, we've got firewood outside and some of that needs to be chopped up. So I'll actually go outside and swing the axe for 10 to 15 minutes. And I find combining that with that physical activity, I find that boosts me up again. Then I can come back in, sit back down and be more focused. And I think that's a good routine to get into. I've read a book that I read once was about splitting your hour up into working solidly for 45 to 50 minutes, then taking a break for 15 to 10 minutes, and just completely switching off, and working in that cycle can create a good balance from working at home, because it gives you that focus. Whereas if you're sitting there for long periods, you can not be as productive as time goes on.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's what the research tells as well, that your brain can focus for about 45, 15 minutes, and then you have to give it a break, or by yawning or by stretching, just for 2-3 minutes, standing up, walking around your chair. This is sometimes enough to relax your brain, to give it some oxygen, and then you can give it a new go. But even better would be, of course, every 2 hours to go outside, do some physical activity, chop some wood if possible. For me, it's a walk in the garden, or just a little bit further away with the dog at lunchtime, or every few hours, just to stretch my legs. And this is what I really need. Because if I don't, I feel the temperature rising in my body. I'm very sensitive to these things today. After all these years, I feel the temperature rising, and then I know now is really the time to move. And then I feel it dropping again. And this is the best way to keep the balance, like you just mentioned.
I found recently we did the push-up challenge here, and that I'd be working, then I'd just drop down and do some push-ups to get the push-up numbers up. And I found that was a nice little switch as well. But I did notice that I think my chest muscles were getting really big from all this. I think I was doing about 200 push-ups a day, and it's kind of not all. But
200 a day.
Increments of 40 and 50 at a time, and it was like I just noticed I started to be going, hang on a minute, maybe I'm getting a little bit out of proportion here. So.
You need to buy some new shoes afterwards.
Exactly.
We know from recent research that sitting for long periods of time is really, really bad for your health. Not just a sedentary lifestyle, but actually sitting. It's not good for you. So I think this is a problem a lot of people encounter when they're working at home, or they're working at computers these days, which is more common than ever, is that you know, the health and the like aches and pains and those kinds of issues that come with it, posture and circulation problems. I'm always concerned about that because I used to be on my feet all the time when I was in the clinic or hospital, and now I sit quite a lot. So if I don't schedule times for me to get up and stretch my legs, I feel physically unhealthy.
Yeah, back pain is rampant in our society. This is because people are sitting for too long most of the time.
And in bad chairs.
Yeah. Some people use those balls to sit on that I've seen, and to keep their posture straight. I also found, from my perspective, I got one of those sit-stand desks so that I can, and today they're really quite cheap as well, so it's just as cheap as a normal desk, and I found that has made a big difference in my life. It's even got a little light that comes on. The controller is generally green, but after, if you've been sitting for too long, it changes to orange to remind you to stand.
Oh, so smart.
Yeah, so which is really, sometimes it's annoying because my favorite color is green, and when it goes orange, I'm not happy. So I want it back green, so I make it go up.
I would like a desk like that powers the computer with leg motion, so that you have to be walking or pedaling to get your work done. That would be a smart way to stay in shape.
At the same time.
Well, I've read that there's some very highly productive and successful people. They work at a desk which is a standing desk, and they have a treadmill, and they say that the correct walking, or the ideal walking speed is about 3 to 4 kilometers an hour, because you can walk at that pace without disturbing your ability to type on the keyboard. And they will just sit I shouldn't say sit, they stand at the desk, walking at that 3 to 4 kilometers an hour while they're working, and do that. I did that also too, and in a work environment, I wanted meetings to be more productive, so I got rid of all the chairs and put a high table in, and then the meetings were held, everyone had to stand for the entire length of the meeting. I found they become a lot more productive when people had to stand up. So.
Did people get mad at you though?
Probably. I mean, maybe I did feel some twinges, so maybe there were some voodoo dolls that looked like me with pins in them, but you know.
Yeah.
But
well, you lost your hair.
I did notice that initially it was a bit of a shock, but then people actually got used to it, and they found it actually quite productive, and it became a lot more efficient. Rather than people just sitting around, they used their time more effectively. But that, I found, from my perspective, the sit-stand desk works really well, especially because you can stand, and like I'm at it now, and I can sort of move back, and while I'm working, I can move backwards, and just you're a little bit more active as you're working. I find that just that little bit, being that little bit more active gives you more energy. And initially, when I first had it, my legs were a little bit sore because I wasn't used to standing all day, but then I got used to that very quickly, and it become very, very effective in managing that health aspect you were talking about before, Heather, of sitting for so long. What about from the perspective of managing your time? Because I know from my perspective, when I work at home, or generally when I work, I'm quite obsessive compulsive. I can be at a task for a long time, and I can work. There's times where I've worked completely through the night on particular projects. And I mean, how do you manage that? I mean, how do you take care of your time? Because I think a lot of people working at home are actually quite enthusiastic about their work, so you can get quite passionate about it and lose track. Have you had that experience, and how have you managed it?
Yeah, I think it depends on whether you are an entrepreneur or if you are working remotely for, a company that's not yours. Because entrepreneurs and people who are working solo in startups have a lot of pressure that they've chosen, that they've taken on, a lot of pressure to be hustling hard and getting stuff done, and initially for the months and initial years of that, it doesn't seem like the work is ever done. There's actually always something to do if you want to build and grow, and there's that I think a sense of urgency to be constantly working and building on that. So that might be a little different than working remotely just in general for any job or corporation. And I struggled with that. I struggled with never feeling like I could really put work down because I have a responsibility to myself to be successful and get things done. So I've worked on that for the last 2 years, worked on being able to celebrate little milestones, and also realizing that my mental and my physical health will really take a toll if I don't take a break, which means I'm not good to anyone. If I burn out and I'm not well, then my business will suffer. So part of investing in my company is investing in myself and forcing myself to take breaks and enjoy life.
So it's a mindset in itself is just making sure that you recognize that looking after your health is important, and not being too hard on yourself, maybe.
Right. If you're an entrepreneur, you are your business, and so taking care of yourself is part of that. It's part of business.
Absolutely.
Annemie, you were going to say?
Yes, absolutely. She's absolutely right. Before I would do the same, I wouldn't look at the clock, you wouldn't feel it. And then once it's almost midnight and you're still busy, and when you sleep, you still dream about your project. And when you wake up, the first thing you do is you open your phone if there are messages, if there are projects coming in, etc. So you live your projects. You are your project almost. And then one day I just decided, okay, first thing in the morning, I have to take care of myself. I do my meditation. I have a very good breakfast that gives me lots of energy. And then I just start at 9 a.m. I will read the newspaper, everything which is necessary in the morning. And then after that, I can just get rid of all the social media and all the rest. I just can close it because I've read it all in the morning. And at 9, I can focus on my project and just go for it till, let's say, lunchtime with a few small breaks. And at lunchtime, I will take my time, 1 hour, and then again, I will go till 4 p.m. I will take my break till dinner, and then after dinner, I can go again. I'll have my energy till when it's necessary in the evening. But at 9 p.m. everything has to shut down. I don't go after 9 p.m. anymore like before.
Making that conscious effort to go, this is the time. I found that similar with perfectionism. That became an issue for me because I would spend forever, and because you don't have time limits, like when you're in an office, you have a 9 to 5, for example, or whatever your hours are, and you can, the office, some people can work late, but a lot of times you actually have that shut off where most people leave the office, and that's where people stop. But I found from my perspective working at home, I wouldn't adhere to those timeframes. So I would just keep going because I wanted to make it better. I wanted to push it better, and I would spend forever. And it became that perspective of the cost benefit of the extra time. And generally what I found was, as I looked at it objectively, there was a lot of extra time being spent for not much extra benefit. And I made a switch. I consciously made a decision that I was going to allocate a certain amount of time to do a particular task. And that was it. Once that time was up, I had to stop, and whatever it was writing an article or whatever I was doing, it had to be stopped and sent off at that point in time. And I found that really made a huge difference from my stress level and my productivity, because I would then, I actually got better at focusing on what are the key things that I needed to focus on instead of lots of little things that don't really add much benefit. So I became good at isolating that up front, and also to being able to shut it off and get it done and move on to the next task. And I found my days become a lot more productive when I approached it that way, by saying this is the time period that I've got to do it in. Whatever the stage it is at that time is where it sits. And I found that made a huge difference, certainly from my stress level and my productivity.
That's a humbling process for perfectionists as well. I have a really hard time with always feeling like something could be better and should be better, and I want it to feel perfect. And the idea of creating or submitting something that is not quite perfect is sort of devastating for your ego. But I have watched people who I admire who are incredibly successful, like, you know, billionaires, the Richard Bransons of the world. And I have watched people like that talk about their humility and their acceptance of failure, and they're not posing as people who are perfect. They're allowing some, you know, variability in their success and failures, and they rely on other people when they can't personally do something. You know, they defer to others who can, and that I think is really admirable and something that perfectionists should pay attention to, because you don't actually become a successful rock star by just being perfect. Nobody does. It's this weird illusion that we're chasing. Yeah.
Definitely.
Yes,
That
we're
was a
all
very humbling experience from my end of accepting that it doesn't need to be perfect, and it's not about being perfect. And most people don't. What you think is perfect, I recognize that a lot of the times when there was something wrong in my mind, wrong in doing it, it only became evident to other people when I pointed it out. I said, "Oh, I haven't done this part," and they go, "Oh, we didn't know."
Yeah.
It was
right.
really good from our perspective. It was.
That's often the case. Yeah.
And it's that small difference that makes you, that separates you from the rest. That's what people want from you. You know, it's that little thing that you think that makes you strange or bizarre or not normal, or that's what people love you for most of the time. Even if it's not perfect in your eyes, people love you for that.
Right.
I think that's an important point to pay attention to as well. One of the best pieces of advice from a mentor that I got was exactly that, to go in your direction and not worry about people that are not aligned with you. And that can be a big thing too from working at home, that you can be too attached to what everybody thinks, and that can be quite distracting. Well, from my perspective, it was very distracting, trying to make sure that I pleased everybody else, whereas you need to go on your own path. And when you do that, you'll find that some people like what you do, some people love what you do, other people will think it's okay, and some people will hate it. And it's the people that love what you do or like what you do that you're interested in, and that are going in that same direction. The others, you know, they're going to say what they're going to say, and that's fine. And you just continue on in your direction.
You just have to find your tribe, you know. You know, there are lots of people out there. You just have to find your tribe, and that's the one you will be happy with. You just cannot the whole world have around you. You know, it's not. Like you said, Heather, it's about ego. You cannot have everyone turn around you. You know, it's just a few people, and that's the one you can be happy with in the end.
Yeah.
And is there any other aspects to managing the stress at home? I mean, we've covered off, you know, your family and managing them, distractions. One of the things that I've found really helpful is also you both mentioned about other people helping you, and I've found from my perspective, managing my work at home has really been a lot easier when I've learnt that I can delegate as well. And there's a lot of ways you can delegate. You mentioned cleaning before, Heather. Same token, in my house I have a cleaner that comes in and does most of the cleaning, so I can't remember the last time I cleaned a toilet or a shower, because I've got someone that does that for me. And also too, I mean, I have some PAs that I send work to, just menial tasks that I would spend time doing, but it's cheaper for me to get someone else to do those tasks for me while I can focus on the more productive things. And I think from my perspective, working at home is recognizing that those options are available for you as well, to find a virtual assistant that can do a number of different tasks for you, and that can make your life a lot less stressful at home by having those things done for you.
Yeah. I think people often underestimate the value of that, because if you have done all of those things on your own all your life, you do all your cleaning and all of your admin and everything, it seems strange or self-indulgent to suddenly pay someone to do that for you, but it's not that at all. If your business is scaling and growing, there does come kind of a critical mass point where you cannot do it all on your own, and actually you're wasting your valuable time on those tasks that are not high paid tasks. You can pay someone far less to be getting that done and off your plate and focus on what is making you money and growing your business. So it's smart. I think a lot of people don't know when that point is, when they've got to get help.
I've learned Sorry, go ahead, Annemie.
Yeah, one last point I wanted to add to this discussion is that sometimes I have a kind of a Zoom call, but without discussion with other people. So we just try to focus.
No.
Yeah, no, it's with other people. So you have a discussion. Well, it's just like 10 people in a group, and we all have this Zoom call. Let's say at 2 p.m. in the afternoon. when the concentration starts to drop. So we all call in on the Zoom call, and we have this kind of the spy of Moscow. We are all watching each other, in fact, and everyone is feeling obliged to finish the job between 2 and 4, let's say. So we are motivating each other to stay on the desk, to finish the job, and then to celebrate that the job is finished at 4 p.m., for instance. So it's
so
a kind of motivating each other. So we don't have to discuss, we just say, okay, what do you want to finish at 4 p.m.? So you have to say it out loud, and then just 2 hours later, you just, you motivate yourself by, being online. You don't have to talk, you just have to finish the thing,
Like work at home anonymous.
Yes.
A Zoom accountability group. That's a good idea. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. All right, we're running out of time. Is there one last takeaway that you would like to share before we wind it up?
No, this was mine.
That was yours? Fantastic. Heather?
I would just emphasize one of the main lessons that I've learned in the last 2 years of working by myself, for myself, is that your mind, your emotional health, your stress levels, and your physical body, you are part of your business as well. So worth investing in, worth taking breaks, making sure that you are happy, and making sure that you're able to keep up with your work. You have to invest in yourself.
Fantastic. Excellent. Well, thank you very much. This has been Exceptional Effort, Mind and Body, discussing lowering your stress at home, how to separate work and home life. Thank you very much, Annemie. Thank you very much, Heather. It's been a pleasure talking with you.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks.